Well, as those talks between the US and Russia over Ukraine get underway, the West is really brandishing the threat of unprecedented sanctions should Russian forces invade. Well, Bryan Quinn from France 24's business desk joins me now to unpack some of the details. Bryan, what exactly then are the US and Europe looking at to kind of raise stakes in terms of financial deterrence?
Well, Stuart, just for some context, when Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, the Obama administration responded with targeted sanctions against small Russian banks and in-the-field military commanders. 8 years later, of course, Crimea still in Russian hands. This time, the Biden administration is thinking much bigger. First off, it's reportedly considering forcing Russia's biggest financial organizations out of the SWIFT system. So what is SWIFT? That's the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. It's the world's primary secure messaging network for transferring funds between banks. It has more than 11,000 member institutions. It handles more than 40 million transactions per day used by securities brokerages, foreign exchange traders. It's a huge part of the global financial system. Now, cutting off access to SWIFT was a key element of U.S. sanctions on Iran that have been so devastating to that country's economy. Kicking Russia out, though, could come with potential downsides for the West. Russia and China have both been building their own interbank transfer systems, and pushing Russia out could actually boost those systems' competitiveness against SWIFT. And SWIFT is actually based in Belgium, originally a European idea. So far, Europe has resisted kicking Russia out of SWIFT for fear that Moscow might actually retaliate by cutting off critical natural gas supplies to the continent.
Yeah, you mentioned natural gas. I mean, a new pipeline also features very heavily in any potential discussions.
It does indeed. The Nord Stream 2, a 12,000 kilometer, €9.5 billion pipeline. It was built by Russian energy giant Gazprom. Half the cost of construction, though, was put up by European energy firms, including Germany's Uniper and Wintershall, Royal Dutch Shell, and France's Engie. Well, the purpose of that pipeline is to transport Russian natural gas under the Baltic Sea directly to the European market via Germany. It would bypass Ukraine. Currently, a significant portion of Europe's Russian gas travels through Ukraine. That generates around $2 to $3 billion annually for Ukraine. Unsurprisingly, Ukraine has been strongly opposed to Nord Stream, but both the U.S. and the U.K. are against it as well. They are afraid that it will increase Russia's political leverage over Europe by making the continent even more dependent on Russian gas. Construction on Nord Stream 2 was finished in September. It's still waiting for German regulatory approval. Germany obviously has a lot invested in the pipeline, but there are increasing signals coming out of Berlin that regulatory approval in Germany could be subject to sanctions if Russia invades Ukraine.
Are there any other options on the table then, Bryan?
There are. The U.S. is reportedly looking at targeting Russia's aerospace and arms industries, both of which bring in significant revenue for the Russian government. Washington has used similar bans on the export of American technologies and components to hobble foreign firms to some effect, notably with the Chinese tech giant Huawei. The U.S. Commerce Department also said to be considering a ban on exports to Russia of any consumer goods that so much as contain American parts or technology, and that could cut off Russian consumers from huge parts of the world retail market. Washington also looking at more targeted sanctions on Russian oligarchs, as well as blocking the conversion of rubles into dollars. All that could have serious effects on a Russian economy that is already hurting. The reality, though, is that Russia has built up major foreign currency reserves, also in gold, and it has a lot that could help cushion the blow already expecting these sort of sanctions. And previous sanctions haven't really had much effect in the way of forcing Moscow to change course, so we'll have to see what happens and hope that diplomacy prevails here.
Indeed we will. Bryan, thanks very much. Bryan Quinn from the Business Desk. Thanks.